The CEO fired single dad for new experts. 30 days later, the system broke, and no one can fix what happens when a CEO replaces someone she believes is no longer needed. Why does a decision made today create unexpected questions in the future? Hello, everyone. We hope you're having a wonderful day filled with positive energy, happiness, and good moments. Please give us about 5 seconds to share a small kindness with us by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Thank you so much for being here and supporting our stories. Before we begin, tell us where in the world you are watching from and what time it is right now. We truly appreciate your presence and hope this story brings you inspiration today. Now, let us begin the story together. Sometimes the person you remove from the room is the only person who knows how to keep the entire building standing. The conference room at Bennett Technologies was silent as Daniel Carter sat across from the people who had made the decision about his future. For 15 years, Daniel had been the quiet person behind the company's most important systems. He was not the kind of employee who searched for attention or competed for recognition. He preferred solving problems before anyone knew they existed. But now, after years of dedication, he heard words he never expected. "We are moving in a new direction," Olivia Bennett said calmly. "The company needs new experts with modern approaches." Daniel listened without interrupting. The new CEO believed she was making the right choice. She saw experienced employees as people who might slow down progress. She wanted fresh ideas, new strategies, and a team that matched her vision for the future. What she did not see was the invisible foundation Daniel had spent years creating. She did not know how many late nights he spent studying the system, how many hidden issues he quietly fixed, or how many employees depended on his knowledge without ever knowing his name. Daniel simply nodded. "I understand," he replied. There was no anger in his voice, no argument, no attempt to prove his value. That surprised everyone in the room. Most people expected disappointment, but Daniel carried himself with quiet dignity. He gathered his belongings, thanked the team for the years they shared, and walked away. Outside the building, the afternoon air felt different. Daniel looked back at the place where he had spent so much of his life. It was not the office he was leaving behind. It was a chapter. At home, his daughter Emma noticed something different when he arrived. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked. Daniel smiled and placed his keys on the table. "I am okay." Sometimes life closes one door because it is making space for another. Emma looked at him carefully. She knew her father was someone who rarely complained. Even when things were difficult, he always found a way to move forward. Meanwhile, inside Bennett Technologies, Olivia Bennett celebrated the beginning of a new era. She introduced the new experts and explained how their knowledge would help the company grow faster than ever. The team was impressed by their confidence and modern ideas. Everyone believed the future looked brighter. Nobody questioned what had been lost. Nobody wondered why Daniel had been the person employees called when complicated problems appeared. Nobody asked why a system built over many years depended on someone who never wanted recognition. Daniel had left quietly, but his absence created a space that would soon become impossible to ignore. Because some people are not noticed when they are present. Their importance is only understood when they are gone. And 30 days later, the company would discover that the quiet single dad they replaced was not just another employee. He was the person who understood everything holding their future together. The first week after Daniel Carter left Bennett Technologies felt different, but most people inside the company believed the change was exactly what they needed. New experts arrived with impressive backgrounds, modern ideas, and confidence that immediately caught everyone's attention. Olivia Bennett watched the transformation with satisfaction. She believed the company was finally moving forward. The meetings became filled with new strategies, new presentations, and new plans for improvement. To many employees, it looked like progress. But behind the scenes, small changes were beginning to appear. Not dramatic problems, not obvious failures, just small signs that something important was missing. A report that once appeared automatically needed extra adjustments. A process that used to run smoothly required more attention. A team member would ask a question and realize the answer was not written anywhere. The new experts were talented. They understood technology, data, and modern solutions. But there was one thing they did not have. They did not know the story behind the system. They saw the structure, but they did not see the years of decisions that created it. Meanwhile, Daniel was building a different routine at home. Every morning, he prepared breakfast for Emma, helped her get ready for school, and enjoyed the moments he once missed while working long hours. For the first time in years, he had more time to focus on his family. He did not spend his days wondering what was happening at the company. He did not check updates or search for proof that he had been right. Daniel believed that every person eventually learns from their own choices. One evening, Emma asked him, "Do you miss your old job?" Daniel thought about the question. "I miss the people," he answered, "but I do not miss being somewhere I am no longer needed." Emma looked at her father and smiled. She knew he was different from most people. He did not measure his value by a position or a title. He understood that his worth existed before anyone recognized it. Back at Bennett Technologies, Olivia continued reviewing progress reports. At first, everything looked positive. The new team had made several changes, and investors seemed pleased. But a few experienced employees started quietly expressing concerns. They noticed that certain decisions were being made without understanding the deeper purpose behind the system. One manager looked through old records and found references to Daniel's work. "Who was this person?" she asked. Another employee answered, "He was the one everyone called when something nobody understood happened." Olivia heard the conversation but remained confident. She believed the past could not be more important than the future. She believed new knowledge would always overcome old experience. But there was one thing she had not considered. Some systems are not held together only by technology. They are held together by the people who understand every detail, every weakness, and every hidden connection. Daniel had spent years learning those details. He knew the system not because he controlled it, but because he cared about keeping it reliable for everyone who depended on it. As the second week began, small questions became bigger discussions. The company was still operating, but the confidence everyone felt at the beginning was slowly changing. And without anyone realizing it, the absence of one quiet single dad was beginning to reveal a truth that could no longer be ignored. By the third week after Daniel Carter left Bennett Technologies, the confidence that once filled the company began to fade. The excitement around the new experts was still present, but the small signs of uncertainty were becoming harder to ignore. People who once believed every challenge had an easy solution started realizing that some problems required more than knowledge from a textbook or experience from another company. They required understanding. During a morning meeting, Olivia Bennett reviewed a growing list of questions from different departments. The new team had made improvements, but several employees were struggling with unexpected situations. A process that had worked perfectly for years suddenly required careful attention. A connection between systems was not responding the way the new experts expected. Everyone searched for answers, but the information they needed was not easy to find. "There has to be a reason this is happening," one expert said. Olivia looked at the reports and remained calm. "Find the solution," she replied. She still believed her decision was correct. She believed the company was simply experiencing normal adjustments during a period of change. But deep inside, a small doubt began to appear. She remembered Daniel's calm reaction when he was asked to leave. He did not argue. He did not try to convince anyone that they were making a mistake. At the time, she saw that as acceptance. Now she wondered if it was something else. Maybe Daniel knew something everyone else did not. Meanwhile, Daniel continued his new routine. He volunteered at a local community center, helped Emma with her school projects, and enjoyed having evenings free. His life was simpler, but he felt peaceful. One afternoon, while fixing a small computer issue for the community center, someone asked him why he never returned to a bigger career. Daniel smiled. Sometimes the most important work is not always the work that gets noticed. That answer represented the way he lived. Daniel had spent years solving problems quietly. He never needed people to know his name. He only wanted things to work well for everyone depending on them. Back at Bennett Technologies, an older employee named Michael noticed something unusual while reviewing system history. He found that many solutions from previous years were connected to notes Daniel had created. They were not official manuals. They were personal observations based on years of experience. Michael showed the information to Olivia. Daniel understood the system differently, he explained. He knew why things worked, not just how they worked. Olivia read through the notes carefully. For the first time, she saw the depth of Daniel's contribution. He was not simply maintaining a system. He was protecting the foundation of the company. That evening, Olivia stayed late in her office, looking through old records. She remembered the day she told Daniel the company needed new experts. She remembered believing experience had become less valuable. Now she questioned that belief. The company had searched for newer solutions, but perhaps it had forgotten the person who understood the problem better than anyone. The next morning, Olivia received another report. The situation was becoming more serious. The new team needed help, and nobody had the answers. For the first time, the CEO, who once believed she had all the right solutions, considered the possibility that the person she removed might be the only one who could help. The fourth week after Daniel Carter left Bennett Technologies began with a feeling. Nobody inside the company wanted to admit. Something important was missing. The new experts continued working, but every solution seemed to create more questions. They understood the technology, the reports, and the modern tools they brought into the company. But they did not understand the history behind the system they were trying to manage. They did not know the small adjustments Daniel had made over the years or the reasons behind the decisions hidden inside the structure. Olivia Bennett spent more time reviewing old documents than ever before. She searched through years of records, hoping to find a simple explanation for what was happening. Instead, she found something that changed the way she viewed the company's past. Daniel had not just maintained the system. He had protected it. Every major improvement, every solution to previous challenges, and every careful adjustment carried pieces of his knowledge. He had created a foundation that allowed everyone else to succeed. Olivia leaned back in her office chair and thought about the day she asked him to leave. At the time, she believed she was choosing progress over tradition. She believed new experts represented the future, while Daniel represented the past. But now she understood that she had confused experience with limitation. Daniel was not holding the company back. He was the reason the company could move forward. Meanwhile, Daniel continued living quietly with Emma. He spent his mornings making breakfast, helping with school preparations, and enjoying moments he once missed because of work. He did not know how much the company was struggling. He did not search for updates or wait for someone to admit they were wrong. Daniel had already accepted the decision. He believed every person deserved the chance to learn from their choices. One evening, Emma noticed her father looking thoughtful while preparing dinner. "Are you thinking about your old job?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "Sometimes I think about the people there." "Do you wish they had listened to you?" Emma asked. Daniel paused for a moment. Being heard feels good, but understanding someone is even better. Emma smiled because she knew her father. Always looked for the lesson in every situation. Back at Bennett Technologies, Olivia finally called Michael, the employee who first discovered Daniel's notes. "How serious is the situation?" she asked. Michael was quiet before answering. "Serious enough that we need someone who knows the system from the beginning." Olivia looked at Daniel's contact information on her screen. For several minutes, she did not move. Calling him meant admitting she had made a mistake. It meant accepting that the person she replaced was the person they needed most. But leadership was not about protecting pride. It was about making the right choice when the truth became clear. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the office earlier than usual. She looked around the building and thought about everything Daniel had quietly contributed. The employees, the systems, and the success she once believed came from her decisions. She finally understood that great companies are not built only by the people standing in front of everyone. They're also built by the people working quietly behind the scenes. With a deep breath, Olivia picked up her phone. She knew the next conversation would not be easy, but it was necessary, because sometimes the hardest step for a leader is not making a decision, is admitting when someone else was right. Olivia Bennett sat quietly in her office for several minutes after ending the call. The decision in front of her was not about fixing a system. It was about recognizing the person she had failed to understand. For the first time since becoming CEO, she realized that leadership was not about always appearing confident. It was about having the courage to admit when someone else had valuable knowledge. She looked at Daniel Carter's contact information again and finally pressed the call button. Daniel answered after a few rings. "Hello, Olivia," he said calmly. She was surprised by how normal his voice sounded. There was no anger, no disappointment, just the same patience she remembered from the day he left. "Daniel, I know this call is unexpected," Olivia said. "I wanted to speak with you about the company." Daniel listened carefully. She explained the situation, the challenges, and the fact that the new team had reached a point where they needed his experience. She expected hesitation. She expected him to remind her of the decision she made. Instead, Daniel simply asked, "What does the team need?" Those simple words stayed with Olivia. He was not focused on being right. He was focused on helping. "Would you be willing to come back and take a look?" she asked. There was a quiet pause. Daniel looked across the room at Emma, who was working on her homework at the kitchen table. He thought about the life he had created after leaving the company. He valued the time he had gained with his daughter. He valued the peace he had found. But he also knew that helping people had always been part of who he was. "I can help," he finally said, "but I am not coming back to prove anything." Olivia understood exactly what he meant. Daniel was not returning for a title, a position, or recognition. He was returning because people needed someone who understood the problem. The next morning, Daniel walked back into Bennett Technologies for the first time in weeks. The building looked the same, but the atmosphere felt different. Employees who once overlooked him now looked at him with curiosity and respect. Some greeted him warmly. Others simply watched quietly, realizing they had underestimated someone who had been working beside them for years. Daniel did not make a dramatic entrance. He did not explain everything he knew. He simply walked into the system room, reviewed the information, and started asking questions. Within minutes, he noticed details others had missed. He understood where the problems began and why previous solutions had not worked. Olivia watched from a distance. She saw something she had not noticed before. Daniel's greatest strength was not just his technical knowledge. It was his ability to remain calm when everyone else felt uncertain. He did not need to be the smartest person in the room because he cared about finding the right answer. As the day continued, the team began learning from him. Daniel shared his knowledge openly and never made anyone feel embarrassed for not understanding. He wanted them to succeed. That surprised many people because they expected someone who had been replaced to feel resentment. Instead, Daniel offered guidance. At the end of the day, Olivia approached him. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. Daniel smiled. "Just remember something important. Never underestimate the people who quietly keep things working." Olivia nodded because she finally understood. The man she once thought was outdated was the person who had been protecting the company's future all along. The days that followed Daniel Carter's return showed everyone at Bennett Technologies something they had forgotten. True expertise was not always the loudest voice in the room. It was often the person who listened carefully, understood deeply, and stayed calm when everything became uncertain. Daniel spent each day reviewing the system, speaking with employees, and helping the team understand what had gone wrong. He never blamed anyone for the decisions that had been made. He never reminded Olivia Bennett that she had been wrong. Instead, he focused on finding solutions. That was what surprised people the most. Many expected Daniel to return with a need to prove himself. They expected him to show everyone how much they had underestimated him. But Daniel did not need approval. He already knew his own value. Olivia watched him closely during those first few days. She noticed how employees naturally trusted him. They asked questions without fear. They shared concerns without hesitation. Daniel created an environment where people felt respected, and that made it easier for everyone to work together. One afternoon, Olivia joined Daniel during a system review. She looked at the notes he had created over the years and saw how much thought was behind every decision. "How did you remember all of this?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "I did not remember everything. I paid attention." Olivia looked at him, realizing that simple answer carried a much bigger lesson. Daniel had not become valuable because of a title. He became valuable because he cared enough to understand every detail. He had spent years learning the system, not because someone demanded it, but because he knew. Thousands of people depended on it. Later that day, Olivia met with the leadership team. She spoke differently than before. The confidence was still there, but it was now mixed with humility. "We made a mistake," she admitted. "We believed new ideas were more important than experience. We forgot that progress requires understanding the foundation first." The room became quiet. Some leaders were surprised to hear the CEO openly acknowledge a mistake. But Olivia understood something important. Admitting the truth did not make a leader weaker. It made a leader more trustworthy. Meanwhile, Daniel continued balancing his work with his life at home. Every evening, he returned to Emma and listened to her stories about school. He still helped with homework, prepared dinner, and enjoyed the moments he had missed before. Returning to Bennett Technologies did not change who he was. He was still the same father who valued simple moments more than recognition. One evening, Emma asked him, "Does everyone know now that you were important?" Daniel smiled and shook his head. "That is not the reason people should listen to someone." Emma looked curious. Daniel continued, "People should be respected before they prove anything. Everyone has something valuable inside them." Those words stayed with Emma, and they reflected everything Daniel had shown throughout his journey. At Bennett Technologies, the employees slowly began seeing him differently. They no longer saw him as the quiet person working in the background. They saw the patience, knowledge, and kindness that had always been there. Olivia also changed the way she led. She began asking more questions, listening more carefully, and recognizing contributions from people who were often overlooked. The company recovered, but the biggest change was not in the system. It was in the people. They learned that success does not come only from replacing what seems old. Sometimes success comes from recognizing the value that was there all along. Several weeks after Daniel Carter returned to Bennett Technologies, the company felt different. The system was stable again, but the greatest change was not something anyone could measure with numbers or reports. It was the way people began seeing each other. Employees who once overlooked quiet voices started paying attention. Leaders who once focused only on quick results began understanding the importance of patience and experience. Daniel never asked for recognition, but his actions naturally earned respect. One morning, Olivia Bennett invited Daniel to join a leadership meeting. In the past, Daniel would have been the person working behind the scenes while others made decisions. This time, he sat at the table as someone whose opinion truly mattered. Olivia looked around the room before speaking. "There is something we need to understand," she said. "A company is not built only by the people who create new ideas. It is also built by the people who protect the foundation." Everyone became quiet because they knew exactly who she was talking about. Daniel listened without saying anything. He did not need the moment to be about him. That was what made the moment even more meaningful. After the meeting, several employees approached Daniel. They thanked him for helping them understand the system and for being patient when they had questions. One younger employee named Ryan admitted, "I thought experience meant someone was stuck in the past. I was wrong." Daniel smiled. Experience is only valuable when people are willing to keep learning. Those words stayed with Ryan because they represented the lesson everyone at the company had discovered. Knowledge was not about age, position, or appearance. It was about dedication. Outside the office, Olivia continued reflecting on her own journey. She had always believed strong leadership meant having the fastest answers. Now she understood that great leaders also needed to ask better questions. She started meeting with employees from every department, including people who rarely spoke during meetings. She wanted to understand what she had missed before. Daniel noticed the change. He saw that Olivia was not simply trying to repair a mistake. She was becoming a different kind of leader. One evening, Olivia invited Daniel and Emma to a small company appreciation event. She wanted the employees to hear the story directly from the people involved. Standing in front of the team, Olivia spoke honestly. "There was a time when I believed progress meant replacing what came before. I learned that real progress means respecting what already works and understanding the people who built it." She looked toward Daniel. Some people do not need a title to prove their value. Their actions speak for them every day. The room became silent. Not an uncomfortable silence, but a respectful one. Daniel looked around and saw the people he had worked with for years. He felt grateful, not because everyone finally recognized him, but because they had learned something bigger. Later that night, Daniel walked outside with Emma. The lights from the building reflected on the windows behind them. Emma held his hand and asked, "Are you happy you went back?" Daniel looked at the company one more time and smiled. "Yes, not because they needed me, because they learned everyone deserves to be valued." And in that quiet moment, Daniel understood that the greatest reward was never proving people wrong. It was helping people see the truth. Months after the moment that changed Bennett Technologies, the company continued moving forward with a different understanding of what success truly meant. The system was stronger, the teams worked better together, and the atmosphere inside the building had transformed. But the most important change was not found in technology or business reports. It was found in the way people treated one another. Employees who once believed only the most visible people created success began noticing the quiet contributions around them. They started asking questions, listening carefully, and appreciating the people who kept everything moving behind the scenes. Daniel Carter never expected the company to change because of him. He simply continued doing what he had always done. He helped when someone needed guidance. He shared knowledge without expecting anything in return. He treated every person with the same respect, regardless of their position. Olivia Bennett noticed this more than anyone. Before Daniel returned, she believed leadership was about making bold decisions and moving quickly. She thought confidence meant always knowing the answer. But Daniel showed her something different. True leadership was not about being the person with the most attention. It was about creating an environment where everyone could succeed. One afternoon, Olivia visited Daniel's office and saw him helping a new employee understand a complicated process. The young employee apologized for asking so many questions. Daniel immediately smiled. "Questions are how people learn," he said. "Nobody becomes better by pretending they already know everything." Olivia listened from the doorway and realized that this was the lesson she had missed before. Daniel did not just understand systems. He understood people. Later that week, Olivia announced a new company program focused on recognizing employees whose work often went unnoticed. She explained that every department had people who quietly solved problems, supported others, and protected the company's future. "We cannot build a better company if we only celebrate the people we see," she told the team. "We also need to appreciate the people who make success possible when nobody is watching." The announcement surprised many employees because it reflected a completely different leadership style from the one Olivia had shown when she first arrived. She was still ambitious. She still wanted growth and innovation. But now she understood that progress without respect could never create lasting success. Meanwhile, Daniel continued enjoying his life outside work. He spent weekends with Emma, attended her school events, and created memories that mattered more than any professional achievement. Returning to Bennett Technologies had not changed his priorities. He still believed being a good father was his greatest responsibility. One evening, Daniel and Emma sat together in their backyard watching the sunset. Emma asked, "Dad, do you think people finally understand you now?" Daniel smiled softly. "Maybe some people do, but understanding is not the most important thing." "Then what is?" she asked. Daniel looked at her and answered, "Treating people well before you know their story." Those words represented everything Daniel had shown everyone around him. His journey was never about becoming the most powerful person in the room. It was about reminding others that every person carries value, even when the world does not recognize it immediately. At Bennett Technologies, the company did not just recover from a difficult moment. It became a place where experience and new ideas could exist together. And the man they once overlooked became the quiet reminder that respect should always come before recognition. A year after the moment that changed Bennett Technologies, Daniel Carter still lived the same way he always had. He arrived at work with a calm smile, listened more than he spoke, and continued helping people without expecting recognition. The difference was that now, everyone understood the value of what he brought to the company. His story became a reminder that important contributions are not always the ones that receive the most attention. Sometimes, the people who quietly protect the foundation are the ones who make everything else possible. Olivia Bennett often thought about the lesson she learned from Daniel. She still led with ambition and continued searching for new opportunities, but she approached every decision differently. Before making changes, she listened. Before judging someone's ability, she looked deeper. She understood that every person had a story, and every person deserved respect before being measured by their appearance, position, or background. One morning, Olivia invited Daniel to join a company leadership event. Employees from different departments gathered together, and many of them remembered how things had changed since Daniel's return. They remembered the uncertainty, the challenges, and the moment they realized the quiet single dad they once overlooked had been the person holding everything together. Olivia stood in front of the team and shared a message that surprised everyone. The greatest mistake a leader can make is believing they already know the value of every person around them, she said. Growth begins when we become willing to learn from the people we once failed to understand. She looked toward Daniel and smiled. Some people lead by giving orders. Others lead by making everyone around them better. Daniel showed us the second kind of leadership. The room became silent. It was the kind of silence filled with respect and appreciation. Daniel looked around and saw the faces of the people he had worked beside for years. He did not feel proud because everyone finally noticed him. He felt grateful because people had discovered something more important than his skills. They had discovered the importance of seeing others clearly. After the event, Daniel walked outside with Emma. The afternoon sun covered the company building with a warm golden light. Emma looked at her father and smiled. Everyone knows how special you are now. Daniel laughed softly. Maybe they know more about what I can do. He paused and looked at the building. But the most important thing is that they learned everyone deserves kindness. Emma held his hand as they walked toward the parking lot. For Daniel, that was always the greatest success. Not a title, not recognition, not a position at the top. His greatest achievement was being a father who showed his daughter that dignity mattered more than pride and kindness mattered more than being right. Years later, people at Bennett Technologies still talked about the lesson Daniel left behind. They remembered the day they learned that experience was not something to replace. It was something to respect. They remembered that innovation and wisdom could exist together. And they remembered the quiet man who never needed to prove his worth because his actions had already spoken for him. Daniel Carter was never the person who demanded attention. He was the person who earned respect without asking for it. Because true value does not disappear when people fail to notice it. Sometimes, it simply waits for the right moment to be understood.